Hello, welcome to our presentation this afternoon. And we were certainly very excited to see the great lineup of speakers. We hope you're enjoying them as much as we are. So, my name's Jack Harvey-Clark.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Romeo-Pitone.
And this afternoon we're going to tell you about our APEAL method, Acoustic Perception Evaluation in Buildings by Listening. So I'll start with the background, where we're coming from, then I'll go through the motivation. Rebecca will talk about the development and realisation of the method, and then we'll reflect a little on what we've done. So where we're coming from, Apex Acoustics, we are acoustic consultants. I established it myself in 2006, working alone, and we've grown to become one of the largest acoustic consultancies in the UK. There's over 20 consultants. We took on a graduate back in July, which was great. And our London office reopened yesterday. So a big welcome there. We used to work out of 3 offices nationwide. Of course, now we work out of 23 offices. And we don't just do acoustics, but we do related subjects too. You might have seen some of our work there. We also regularly win prizes for our work, most notably from the Association of Noise Consultants. I like to think this is because we like to dig a little bit deeper, find out what's important, what do our clients actually want when they say acoustics, what do they mean, how can we do that most effectively and efficiently. And that's important for where this method's come from too, because more than one architect told us we want our building to sound like that. They did that when we were playing them a short video that we'd made in this building, The Word in South Shields. And we'd made that video as an entry for an ANC award initially. So you can see it's a mixed use open plan space that has a very variable acoustic, well, you can't see this, but it has a very variable acoustic environment within it. So we made a short video to illustrate that on a mobile phone with me talking over the top, and I'm going to play you a little extract from it in a minute. But this, one of the things I think is interesting about this film completely fails to meet all the soundscape standards for data. I'm talking, it's recorded poorly, uncalibrated equipment and all that, but this film has still been really useful to us, and people have engaged with it. We want our building to sound like that is a very powerful response. So have a listen to this extract and see what you think. The full version is on our website, and we'll give you the address at the end of this presentation.
Welcome to The Word in South Shields. We're going to take you on an audio tour through this building. Here's the cafe, the vibrant area, and there's people doing their own personal investigations, people having meetings, and so there's gaming zone booths, and there's individual study booths here. They're on the first floor now, looking across the atrium towards the cafe. As you look around on this floor, you can see there's people engaged more in individual learning and discovery. So next to the entrance atrium that you can see there, you can see people pursuing their own learning and discovery individually. Some more tables in the open plan area. And let's move across to the area where the books are. This is where you notice the biggest change in acoustic environment as we walk from the open plan into the books. Here we go. Leaving the sound of the atrium behind, the whole response of this space changes in time. The people here are naturally being quiet because it's about 20 dB quieter than it is in the atrium as we walk across there.
So I hope you enjoyed that little taster. So the APEAL method, well, we realised during the design of that building that it's very difficult to evaluate the performance in use, especially of mixed use open plan spaces. All our acoustic criteria, almost all of them, are based around measuring in empty buildings. So what would the reverberation time or the unoccupied building services noise level in that building tell you about how people actually use it, how they respond to the space, how they respond to each other, how they interact with each other to create what is the soundscape, the experience of sound in there. It would be very difficult to tell from the empty building how it was going to sound in practice. But to design buildings, considering their in-use performance, we first need an evaluation method. How can we evaluate the performance in use? And we need to do this in a much softer way than with numbers, because this forms part of the design aspirations. So what we're trying to do with the APEAL method, by making a film in a particular way, is be able to reproduce different acoustic environments so people get a sense of what it's like to be in there, and they can decide if that's the type of building they want or not, and what's the implication of design decisions they're making potentially in terms of the in-use performance rather than numbers. We know that acoustics is full of technical jargon and descriptors which are completely inaccessible to the layman, but the product of acoustic design is accessible to almost everyone. How does it sound to be in there? Why don't we communicate that to people so they can make those decisions too? So this will enable design and especially communication with the design team. So Rebecca's going to take you through the tools which we used to develop this method and how we realised it. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Jack. I think it's interesting to briefly frame the method from an audiovisual standpoint. Film sound theorists have always put emphasis on the pivotal role that sound plays in conveying meaning within a film. Amongst them, Michel Chion famously wrote, "We never see the same thing when we also hear, and we don't hear the same thing when we see as well." And this idea is central to our method because we want to portray the soundscape providing as much context as possible. What is the source of this unfamiliar sound? Why is this area louder? Is it appropriate? As listeners, we can answer all of these questions simply by watching a film. And this is what makes APEAL a great tool for communication. One of the first buildings we have documented is Northumbria University Library. And this is a short extract from the video we made in February this year.
This is a quick walk through the floor space. As you enter the reading room, you see the collaborative areas with high tables and booths. Then there is the open plan areas with individual workstations. And towards the rear facade of the building, you see the quieter areas for deep focus work.
When it came to selecting our tools, we started considering what the most human-centered approach would be. And we decided to utilize binaural technology as it captures the acoustic environment in such an accurate way, making you feel like you are really in the room at the time of the recording. Using a point-of-view camera such as GoPro would match this strategy visually. In this way, view and audition meet at the same point. And this is also a relatively non-intrusive method and allows us to capture the soundscape from the building user's perspective. We can sit at a desk and still be able to film and record. Whereas a dummy head, for example, would be more cumbersome, attract attention, and we will not have the same type of control over the footage. I'm now going to talk about some of the challenges that we have encountered so far. Realism is the first one, and it has to do with our relationship with sound in film. As the audiovisual language has been developed over more than a century, we have become culturally accustomed to sounds that are not real. They're just symbols. For example, take the cinematic sound of a punch. Thanks to binaural technology, we are indeed presenting more real sounds. However, the fact that they're real does not mean that we can accept them as such when we hear them in a film. For example, listen to this short extract from the Northumbria University Library film. I'm sure you'll agree that the sound is very imposing here, and you wouldn't believe that anyone could tolerate it. But that is the orally accurate rendition of the experience at the time in place. So this means that we have become somehow tolerant of these sounds in practice, desensitized to the overabundance of acoustic information, to use Schaeffer's words. Now, here's a short extract from a film we shot outside. Have a listen. What is disconcerting here is that the visual scene seems relatively calm, but the sound is very loud. When shooting this, I did not feel the need to look at the lorry. I knew it was there because I heard it. So with my camera, I focused on it only briefly. However, when I watched the video, something is off. I can't see the sound source that in fact dominates the soundscape. So this scene seems a bit like incongruous. And so one of the questions is, how do we take this into account? The fact that we have ways of disregarding sounds when we are there, but not when we are rewatching or re-listening to the recording of those same sounds. Moving on to the recording techniques that we employ. This has been a learning process because we couldn't find many references to previous attempts at doing this, particularly inside buildings. So the first technique we tried was the sound walk. However, we quickly realized that this does not convey the building user's perception of the soundscape. We do not normally walk aimlessly in the office, do we? Usually we're sitting for periods of time at desks or other workstations, and we only move to and fro. So we took this into account and changed our techniques. Then access has been difficult, as you can imagine. Private companies have been very reluctant to let us use the footage beyond our work with them. Public institutions often don't have a process for approving a request for this type of recording. When it comes to GDPR, we can anonymize everyone who appears in the film, although as you may have noticed, this really impacts the quality of the footage. There are many aspects of this method that require formal validation, such as how long do you need to spend on site, how do you select the scenes to present, how do you choose to juxtapose different scenes. Ultimately, how do we make this method systematic and effective to convey different acoustic peculiarities? As well, emerging research demonstrates that responses to audiovisual media may be less favorable than in the real environment. This needs to be investigated further so that we can understand how to present an audiovisual experience to which people respond similarly to the way they respond to the real environment. We would be delighted to work with other academic researchers, practitioners, artists to investigate these questions and enrich our understanding of building soundscapes. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So we'd made some films and we wanted to find out if they were useful and could be effective for to use in different ways. So we engaged with architects, facilities managers and end users. We played them some materials and we asked them different questions. We wanted to find out how important binaural sound was. What did they think about how we selected different types of scenes and things like that. So partly how did we compose the films and how would that affect how they responded to them. One of the things that we hadn't necessarily anticipated was they suggest actually a much wider use of this type of material, but they would like to see reverberation times, for example, demonstrated in this way. So they thought this would help clients understand what it meant when we quoted reverberation times that we suggested they design to. So using for traditional acoustic design parameters, as well as for that open plan mixed use space. So where do we go from here? Well, we are looking to collaborate with academics on this, and there was a lot of interesting presentations at Internoise 2020 in Seoul, South Korea, back in August, where other people are also looking at indoor soundscapes, and especially the validation. Do people respond in the same way to films, to audiovisual media, compared to how they respond to the real environment? And the answer is not always, for sure. So how can we close that gap? It's a very important thing. And one thing that we're looking at for this is, would 3D sound and vision giving users a little bit more control help this? We know how important control is as a non-acoustic factor in determining people's response to soundscapes. So if they had more control in the film, would this help them respond more similarly to the way people respond in the real environment? So we're doing this right now with 3D sound and 3D images with these devices. We'll let you know how we get on. We'll post some videos on our website as soon as we can. So to conclude then, first of all, playing people's sounds and giving them context demystifies acoustics. So this enables participative design straight away. It overcomes all those traditional barriers to acoustic engagement in the design process. All of them, some of them. We're finding this is useful in practice right now, but it does require validation. Could this be a new soundscape data collection tool? Well, we look forward to developing it ourselves and with others too. Thank you very much for listening. You can scan the QR code, that will take you to that web address, apexacoustics.co.uk/APEAL-Method. Thank you. Look forward to some questions.